I think literally you are the only people left in it. But anyway, let me...
Chris, you keep saying that's just not the case. And you know it's not the case. Again, I know it's good for a headline, but it's just not true.
Told you our Foreign Secretary James Cleverly was throwing that line around willy-nilly when he's put on the spot on something he's not really too sure about. But hello then, I do hope you're all well. Now, this was a separate incident with Labour MP Chris Bryant when he brought up a certain charity that was waiting for the funds from the sale of Chelsea. Remember that time, yeah? Still waiting for it. From a certain owner, as we all remember, to help with the rebuilding of Ukraine. Well, right from the offset, you can tell James Cleverly was not really over what was really going on.
Thanks. I completely agree, obviously, about Ukraine and the desire to be able to get on with reconstruction. I wonder whether you can help me with a few things. You know that, obviously, that Abramovich sanctioned the sale of Chelsea went through last May. Is the charity up and running, and has it now got the money from that to be able to start the reconstruction in Ukraine?
So we set up the trust to deal with this, and actually we've handed that across because I think it's better that it is dealt with and
the money
and been seen to be dealt with independently of government. When they are ready to receive the money, we'll unlock it. That hasn't happened yet.
They've been saying that they've been ready for several months now.
That's not what that's not the feedback that I've got. There are still certain issues that need to be resolved before that can be.
But it's a whole year now. It's more than a year since the sale of Chelsea, and that's £3.2 billion. That would be the single biggest amount of money that we'd be contributing.
Yeah. As I say, we've set up a trust to deal with this, and that is their responsibility.
So you're blaming Mike Penrose for not having got it ready in time?
I'm not blaming anybody, and the point...
In a way, it kind of is really, isn't it, when you think about it. Now, for me, I'm not expecting James Cleverly to be on top of everything, so to speak. Why doesn't he just say to Chris, who you could tell clearly is well and truly over his brief about this, and just say, Chris, let me write to you about this when I'm fully on top of what is the problem and got a good handle on this, and give you a really good account as to what is the problem. Also, we both really want the same goal, as to speak, and we all know how important all round of this to get this right. And I will get on to it straight away after I leave this meeting. And you could also say, thanks for really highlighting me, and I'll get on to it. And I'm sure Chris would have been more than happy to oblige. But he doesn't see it that way. Let's put it that way.
I'm making is that this is complicated. The numbers are very significant. We want to make sure that the money goes exclusively to the recipients that it should go to. This is inevitably very... it's important we get this right, but
so
ultimately...
what's the thing that's not right yet?
But ultimately, as I say, the trust was set up for this reason. It's their job to
what's the thing that's not right yet?
Well, it's important we make sure that the money that was released goes to the recipients, and exclusively the recipients that it was aimed at. That it was. So
you're not sure that it would, as it's presently constructed?
Well, I want to make sure. We want to get this right. And as I say, it is with a sum of money of this magnitude, I would rather get it right than to do it quickly and inadvertently get it wrong.
One of your colleagues said last July in the House, I think it was, that it would be sorted by the autumn. And now we're here the next summer, and it doesn't look as if it's going to be done by... Will it be done by the summer recess?
Well, I don't know. As I say, we're not the only ones involved in this. We need to make sure we get this right.
I think literally you are the only people left in it. But anyway, let me...
Chris, you keep saying that's just not the case. And you know it's not the case. Again, I know it's good for a headline, but it's just not true.
There's that line again. It's pathetic. Why don't you just take it as given and not get involved? One thing I've noticed about Suella Blabbermouth when it comes to these Home Affairs Select Committee meetings, when somebody finishes with their question and comes out with a statement like that, she just leaves it, doesn't get involved. I think it's a bit of a pattern with James Cleverly. He just cannot help himself. Do you remember that interview with James O'Brien? I think around the time when he was pushing for Boris Johnson to become the leader of the Conservative Party, and he asked him whatever question of what has he achieved in his political career, and he talked about something about the Salisbury attack or something, and James O'Brien pushed back on it and said, we're not having that, and someone think to what I expect. And he went, oh, come on, James, no, you can't change the subject. So then James went, all right, we'll stay on this. And then he went, railed off 3 or 4 questions, and he tied him up in knots, and it was as if to say, you can hear it in James Cleverley's voice, as if to say, I wish I'd not said note. And I think in this case, he shouldn't really say anything, because he's just digging a hole for himself.
It is honestly, the only people who have to decide whether the money is handed over is the government. The trust, so I am told, is perfectly ready and has been ready for some time. So if you're not across the details, and you would like to write to us later...
No.
So what's the problem with the trust then?
So why wouldn't we? If everything were tickety-boo, if everything were right, and if we've had all the assurance we need, why would we not handle
Quite.
it?
So what is the problem?
No. So I'm asking, why would we not?
You're saying that it's not ready for some reason. So
I'm saying that I want to make sure. I feel that with a sum of money this significant, we are duty bound to make sure that we absolutely get this right. If your contention is that everything is fine, help me understand why you wouldn't just sign the cheque.
No, I want you to help me understand why you're not...
I've just told you.
Well, you haven't. You haven't pointed to a single thing that you think is problematic with the present situation with the trust.
Well, the point...
And maybe you need to write to us to clarify.
Well, no,
that.
I can explain now. I want to absolutely make sure that the money goes exclusively to the recipients.
And you think it wouldn't as it's presently constructed?
And I need full reassurance that is the case before.
So you don't trust the way the trust has been put up?
No.
Okay.
No.
Let me move on to another subject then.
You're trying to put words in my mouth, and that's not what I've said. And again, I think it's really, really clear that we work with the trust. We are trying to make sure we achieve the same thing. It is right that we do it properly because of the sums of money involved. I want to absolutely make sure this is right.
I would gently suggest that it would also be good to be able to start reconstruction in Ukraine, because there are people begging for homes, and this is a substantial amount of money, and it's meant to have been ready many months ago. Let me ask you a different question.
We'll leave it here. But Chris Bryant, he does have a point, doesn't he? He's spot on that. While our Foreign Secretary is holding out for whatever reassurances, people in Ukraine will still be waiting for a roof over their head, I suppose. Now, for all I know, James Cleverley, he could have a legitimate reason for keeping all that money. I don't know. But the fact that he couldn't really name any speaks volumes to a point that I'm beginning to think maybe he don't even know himself why he's keeping hold of the money. Who knows? He also looked incredibly shady. He could have saved himself all that hassle if he'd have just said to Chris Bryant, look, can I get back to you on that? As I'm not over all of the information at hand and I need to get everything together, and I will write to you, and I will do it once I've left this meeting. And like as Chris Bryant said, he'd be happy for that. But I get the feeling he cannot help himself, can he? Like I said earlier, cannot help himself. But anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know down below, and until the next time, I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.